The first warning came on a freezing January morning, right at 6:07 a.m. I was halfway through clearing my driveway when my phone buzzed. Snow was still falling hard, thick and relentless, the kind that buries cars and turns roads into ice traps. I had woken up early on purpose. If I didn't clear the driveway before work, I'd be stuck all day. I shut off the snowblower and checked my phone. HOA notice. Noise violation. Use of motorized equipment before 8 a.m. is prohibited. Fine pending review. I laughed, out loud, alone in the snow. The road I lived on wasn't a normal HOA street. It was a private access road that crossed my land before reaching the rest of the subdivision. I had lived there long before the HOA even existed. When the developers came years ago, they needed access. So I signed an easement, limited, very specific, and very clear. They could use the road. They could maintain it. They could not control my property. Apparently, the HOA president, Linda, had forgotten that part. By the time I finished clearing my driveway, my phone had buzzed 3 more times. Another notice, another violation, and finally, a message that made my jaw tighten. Continued noncompliance will result in enforcement action. At 6:45 a.m. Against snow. I went to work, but the situation followed me all day. By noon, I had an email threatening a $250 fine. By 3 p.m., they'd CC'd the HOA attorney. That's when I pulled out my original documents. The easement agreement was signed 12 years earlier. I read it slowly, line by line, just like I had back then. And there it was, Clause 7, Subsection B. The property owner reserves the right to revoke access temporarily or permanently in the event of harassment, unreasonable interference, or abuse of authority by the benefiting party. I leaned back in my chair. They hadn't just crossed a line. They'd handed me the rope. That evening, I attended the HOA emergency meeting. Linda sat at the head of the table like a judge, arms crossed, lips tight. You violated quiet hours, she said sharply. Residents were disturbed by snow removal. I asked calmly. Yes. Rules are rules. Even during a snowstorm, she didn't blink, especially then. I nodded. Good to know. She smirked. You'll receive formal notice tomorrow. If fines aren't paid, we'll escalate. That's when I stood up. I'm revoking the easement. The room went silent. Linda laughed. You can't do that. I can, I replied. And I just did. She slammed her folder shut. You don't have that authority. I placed a copy of the agreement on the table and slid it toward her. She didn't touch it. The next morning, I hired a local contractor. By noon, 2 heavy steel gates stood at the entrance of the road, on my property, exactly where the easement began. Snow piled up behind them, untouched. I posted a single sign. Private property, no trespassing, easement revoked due to HOA harassment. By 5 p.m., my phone exploded. Residents couldn't leave, kids couldn't get to school. Delivery trucks were stuck, emergency vehicles had to reroute. Linda left me 7 voicemails. Remove the gate immediately. You're abusing your power. This is illegal. You're holding people hostage. I didn't respond. Instead, I emailed the HOA attorney, attached the signed agreement, highlighted Clause 7B, and added 1 sentence. All communication must now be in writing. The sheriff arrived around 8 p.m. He walked the gate, checked the documents, and shrugged. Looks like it's your land, he said. Civil matter. Linda showed up in person, red-faced and shaking. You're enjoying this, she accused. No, I said. I'm enforcing boundaries. Something you seem unfamiliar with. She threatened lawsuits, liens, media attention. I smiled. You banned a snowblower at 6 a.m. during a blizzard. 3 days passed. Snow melted. Tempers didn't. Finally, the HOA caved. They sent a formal apology. They withdrew all fines. They amended their bylaws to exclude my property permanently. And they agreed, in writing, that no HOA rule would ever apply to my land again. Only then did I reopen the gate. The first car rolled through slowly, cautiously, like it expected the road to bite. Linda never looked at me again. And every winter since, when my snowblower roars to life at 6 a.m., no one complains. Because they remember what happens when an HOA forgets who actually owns the road. Agar Chaho to Maine.